You ever wonder why your biggest wins never reach their full potential? Why just when a trade starts to move your way, you feel that subtle pull to take profit to secure something, even though the plan says hold. It's not about the chart. It's not about the market. It's about the mind. The human mind is brilliant at surviving, but terrible at letting go. This episode isn't about strategy or indicators. It's about the unseen war between fear and discipline, between emotional comfort and rational confidence. Because scaling out isn't the problem. It's why you scale out that reveals everything. This is Mind Over Markets. And today we explore how to scale out without killing your winners. Have you ever closed part of a winning trade and then watched the chart rise higher and higher until you felt that quiet sting of regret? You tell yourself, at least I took profit. But deep down, you know you just killed something that could have changed your month, maybe even your year. You scaled out, not because your plan told you to, but because your emotions begged you to. And that's where this story begins. In trading, we love control. We crave certainty in a place built on chaos. We build systems, strategies, rules. But when we're in a live trade, the rules fade and emotions take the wheel. You see, scaling out feels safe. It feels smart. It makes you believe you're protecting your profit. But often you're not protecting profit. You're protecting your ego. Because every tick against you feels like a personal attack. Every pullback whispers, what if it reverses now? What if you lose it all? So you do what your nervous system demands you take some off. You buy safety. You relieve the pressure. And for a few seconds, you feel calm. But that calm is borrowed. It's not earned. You paid for it with potential, with the part of your trade that could have been great. Every trader knows this feeling. You start the trade with confidence. You see green. And then fear creeps in. Not fear of losing money. Fear of losing what's already yours. That's the subtle shift. The moment profit becomes possession. The brain switches from opportunity mode to protection mode, and that's when most traders sabotage themselves, because the market rewards patience, but the mind punishes uncertainty. The reason scale-outs kill your winners isn't that they're wrong technically. It's that they're emotional anesthesia, a quick fix for discomfort, a tiny dose of dopamine that says you did something. But in trading, doing something is often the opposite of progress. Think about this. When you take partial profits, what are you really telling yourself? You're saying, I don't trust this trade to go further. I don't trust my system. I don't trust myself. You've shifted from being the executor of a plan to being the protector of comfort. And in that state, you can't let winners run, because every second they stay alive, they challenge your control. That's why most traders never experience what it feels like to ride a 10R move. They've built an emotional system that aborts success before it matures. When you look at elite traders, you might think they're fearless. They're not. They just have a higher tolerance for uncertainty. They've trained their mind to sit in the tension, the same tension that makes others click close partial, because they know something simple but rare. Your biggest winners don't feel comfortable while they're happening. They feel unbearable. They stretch your nervous system. They make you question everything you believe about control. And yet that's where your edge truly lies, not in the entry, not in the exit, but in the ability to stay. Staying isn't passive. It's a psychological skill. It's the mastery of patience under pressure. When you scale out too soon, you're trying to escape uncertainty. But uncertainty isn't the enemy, it's the environment. Trading isn't about eliminating fear. It's about functioning through fear. Every scale-out decision reveals your internal dialogue. The part of you that says, I need to feel safe, fights with the part that says, I want to grow. Safety and growth can't coexist. One must surrender to the other. And until you accept that you'll keep trading from the middle, never blowing up but never breaking through, you'll live in the comfort zone of mediocrity, scaling out just enough to survive, but never long enough to thrive. Let's be honest, you didn't become a trader to feel safe. You came here to be free. Freedom requires risk. But risk isn't about danger, it's about responsibility. The responsibility to trust your edge even when your body screams to take the easy win. When you understand that you stop scaling out emotionally and start scaling out strategically, because scaling out isn't evil, it's just often misused. It should be part of a plan, not part of a panic. So here's the question I want you to sit with. When you take profit early, are you managing risk or managing fear? Because those are not the same. There's a moment in every trader's journey when you realize you're not fighting the market anymore. You're fighting yourself. The candles aren't your enemy. Your emotions are. And until you understand that every technical edge you have will crumble under psychological weight. See, we're wired for survival, not success. The brain evolved to avoid pain, not to seek growth. So when the market gives you open profit, your primitive mind whispers, "Take it now. Don't let it vanish." That voice sounds rational. It sounds protective, but it's the same voice that's been holding you back your entire life. It's the voice that trades short-term relief for long-term potential. In trading, that voice is death by 1,000 cuts. Because the market will always test your nerve. It will pull back just enough to make you doubt. It will tempt you to cash in your winners, to scale out too soon, to seek the illusion of control. And every time you obey that voice, you reinforce it. You teach your brain that comfort equals safety and discomfort equals danger. But in the world of markets, that equation is reversed. Discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is growth. It's the feeling of your edge expanding. And when you start to embrace that truth, you unlock a level of patience that most traders never touch. Statistical confidence is built not through winning trades, but through consistent execution of a system you trust. Because trust in trading isn't emotional, it's mathematical. Your brain wants reassurance after every candle, but your system only speaks in probability. So the next time you feel the urge to scale out early, pause and ask yourself, has my system given me a reason to exit? If not, then you're not managing risk. You're managing emotion. The professional trader sees drawdown as data. The amateur sees it as danger. The professional views uncertainty as a cost of entry into opportunity. The amateur views it as something to be avoided. That's the real divide, not knowledge, not intelligence, but relationship with uncertainty. When you can sit in uncertainty without the need to fix it, you become unshakable. Most traders can't sit still long enough to let the math work. They interfere, they tinker, they overmanage, they kill the trade before the edge has time to express itself, because they confuse activity with progress. But the best traders know the real work happens in silence. The hardest skill is to do nothing when every nerve in your body screams for action. This is where the concept of scale out gets misunderstood. Scaling out should be strategic, a mechanism of system design, not an emotional outlet. If you plan to take partial profits, define it before you enter the trade. Write it down. Commit to it. Because the moment you decide mid-trade, you're no longer following a plan, you're following a feeling. Feelings are reactive. Systems are objective. And objectivity is the only thing that survives long-term in the markets. Every great trader develops what I call tolerance for uncertainty. It's the ability to witness volatility without trying to control it. When the chart swings violently, most traders' hearts race. They zoom in. They question everything. But the master trader zooms out. He breathes. He reminds himself this is part of the process. He doesn't chase calm. He creates calm through understanding. Because when you understand the game, you stop needing it to behave a certain way. There's a beautiful paradox in trading. The more you try to control outcomes, the less control you actually have. But when you surrender to process, you gain the only control that matters: control over yourself. Scaling out too early isn't a sign of caution. It's a sign of impatience. It's the ego saying, I want certainty now. But certainty doesn't exist in the market. It exists only in your behavior. Let me tell you something truthfully: no trader ever built a fortune by avoiding discomfort. They built it by learning to live inside it. By understanding that fear, when properly interpreted, is information, not instruction. Fear tells you where your limits are. Discipline tells you to move past them. So when you feel that tightness in your chest, that twitch to take profit, that urge to click close, pause, breathe, recognize what's happening inside you. That's not risk management. That's emotional regulation. You're trying to calm the nervous system, not manage your portfolio. But what if you could separate the two? What if you could feel fear and still follow your plan? That's what real traders do. They act through emotion, not under emotion. And that's the shift from emotional comfort to statistical confidence. Confidence isn't built from winning. It's built from consistency. Every time you stick to your rules, you wire your brain for discipline. Every time you break them, you wire your brain for chaos. The market mirrors your psychology. Your equity curve is a reflection of your emotional curve. You want smoother profits? Start with a calmer mind. You want bigger winners? Start by holding longer, not because it feels good, but because it aligns with your edge. The truth is simple, but hard to accept. You can't control the market. You can only control your participation in it. Once you internalize that, you'll stop trying to force certainty and start flowing with probability. Trading isn't about prediction. It's about preparation. Scale-out decisions become powerful when they're born from preparation, not panic. So write your plan. Define your exits. Know where you'll scale out and why. Then when you're live in the market, you follow the plan, not the pulse of fear. Because fear doesn't vanish with experience. It transforms with understanding. Understanding turns chaos into rhythm, noise into data, emotion into edge. And that's when something shifts in you. You stop being the trader chasing comfort and become the trader commanding control. Not control over outcomes, but control over reactions. That's the real edge. That's the difference between a good system and a good trader. A good system works on paper. A good trader works under pressure. And pressure is where you prove who you really are. There comes a time when every trader learns the truth. You can't grow until you stop trying to feel safe. Safety is the comfort of mediocrity. Freedom lives in uncertainty. To let your winners run, you must first let go of control of fear, of the need to know what happens next. Because the greatest trades of your life will never feel certain. They'll feel uncomfortable. They'll test every ounce of your patience and trust. And that's exactly how you know they matter. Trading isn't a game of prediction. It's a game of permission. Permission to trust your system. Permission to let the market do what it does. Permission to allow yourself to be uncomfortable and still composed. That's what mastery looks like, not the absence of fear, but the coexistence of fear and discipline. You will never eliminate emotion. You will only learn to interpret it differently. The professional doesn't suppress fear. He recognizes it as a signal, not a market signal, but an internal one, a sign that something inside is still searching for control. When you reach that level of awareness, you stop reacting and start observing. You see your mind the same way you see the chart patterns, impulses, trends. Some are useful, some are noise, but none of them define you. That's the essence of trading psychology detachment. Detachment isn't apathy, it's clarity. It's the ability to act without needing emotional validation. When you detach, you become dangerous because now nothing the market does can provoke you into breaking your plan. Your power returns. You no longer scale out to feel safe. You scale out because your plan says so. You no longer hold out of greed. You hold because the probabilities still align. Everything becomes process, no longer personal, and that's when trading becomes peaceful. Not easy, but peaceful. A quiet rhythm where every loss, every win is just part of the sequence. You begin to see the bigger picture, that your job is not to control outcome, but to control execution, that your growth isn't measured in dollars, but in emotional stability. Because when you master your mind, the money follows naturally. The reason is simple. The market rewards emotional maturity. Every time you stay disciplined under pressure, you widen the gap between your impulses and your actions. And in that gap, that moment of awareness, you find freedom. Freedom from overtrading. Freedom from doubt. Freedom from that exhausting chase for certainty. You start to see that your biggest opponent was never the volatility, never the broker, never the algorithm. It was you. It was your impatience, your attachment to being right, your need to control every tick. When you let that go, you stop fighting the market and start flowing with it. You become fluid, adaptable, calm. A good trade no longer excites you. A bad trade no longer destroys you. They're just outcomes, data points, nothing more. That's the sign you've evolved. Most traders chase certainty in data. The wise trader finds certainty in discipline, because no data can save you from your own impulses. And yet most never learn this lesson. They spend years tweaking entries, optimizing exits, testing indicators, when all along the variable that mattered most was their own psychology. You see, the market doesn't care how smart you are. It doesn't care how hard you work. It only rewards emotional consistency, the ability to do the right thing, especially when it feels wrong. That's the paradox of mastery. When everything in your body screams to act, you stay still. When fear tells you to run, you hold. When greed tells you to push, you exit according to plan. This is not just trading. It's self-mastery in real time. Every candle is a mirror. Every position a test. Every drawdown a teacher. And if you listen carefully, you'll realize that trading was never about making money. It was about building the kind of mind that can handle uncertainty with elegance and composure. That's why most people quit. They came for profit, but what they found was a confrontation with themselves. And that's uncomfortable, but if you stay long enough, if you keep facing those fears, you'll find something profound. A quiet sense of confidence that no outcome can shake, because you've learned the truth. Success in trading isn't found in controlling the market, but in controlling yourself, while the market remains uncontrollable. That's the secret behind letting your winners run. It's not a strategy, it's surrender. Surrendering the illusion of control. Surrendering the need to feel right. Surrendering the constant urge to secure the momentary win instead of the meaningful one. Let your winners run, not because it guarantees more profit, but because it trains your mind to live in uncertainty without panic. That's the muscle that grows stronger with every trade you hold, with every fluctuation you endure, with every fear you outlast. At some point, you'll realize that trading isn't about outsmarting the market. It's about outlasting your emotions. Patience beats precision. Acceptance beats prediction. Discipline beats everything. And when you reach that understanding, you become untouchable. Because the market can take your profits, but it can't take your peace. It can shake your confidence, but not your clarity. It can test your patience, but it can't break your process. That's when you truly win, not when your balance grows, but when your reactions don't. So the next time you're tempted to scale out early, to chase comfort, to protect what feels safe, remember this. Winners don't die because the market turned. They die because you couldn't handle the feeling of maybe losing what you had. Let that sink in, then breathe, and let the trade run. Because trading isn't about what you make today. It's about who you become over time. You don't need to kill your winners to feel secure. You need to grow strong enough to let them live. That's how you scale out without sabotage. That's how you evolve from emotional trader to psychological master. And that's how you step into the next chapter, where your edge isn't just in your system, but in your state of mind. There comes a time when every trader learns the truth. You cannot grow until you stop trying to feel safe. Safety is the comfort of mediocrity. Freedom lives in uncertainty. To let your winners run, you must first let go of control of fear, of the need to know what happens next. Because the greatest trades of your life will never feel certain. They will feel uncomfortable. They will test every ounce of your patience and trust. And that's how you know they matter. Trading is not a game of prediction. It is a game of permission. Permission to trust your system. Permission to let the market breathe. Permission to allow yourself to be uncomfortable and still composed. That is what mastery looks like, not the absence of fear, but the coexistence of fear and discipline. You will never erase emotion. You will only learn to interpret it differently. The professional doesn't suppress fear. He recognizes it as a signal, not a command, a sign that something inside is still clinging to control. When you reach that awareness, you stop reacting and start observing. You see your own mind as you see the chart patterns, impulses, noise. Some deserve action, most do not. That is detachment, not apathy, but clarity. The ability to act without needing emotional validation. When you detach, you become dangerous because nothing the market does can provoke you into breaking your plan. You no longer scale out to feel safe. You scale out because the plan requires it. You no longer hold out of greed. You hold because probability still favors you. Everything becomes process. Nothing remains personal. And that is when trading becomes peaceful, not easy, but peaceful. A rhythm where every loss, every win is part of the same dance. Your job is no longer to control outcome, but to control execution. Growth is measured not in dollars, but in emotional stability. When you master the mind, profit becomes a side effect. Because the market rewards maturity, not brilliance. Each time you remain disciplined under pressure, you widen the gap between impulse and action. In that gap lies freedom. Freedom from overtrading, from fear, from the exhausting chase for certainty. You realize your biggest opponent was never the market, but your own impatience. When you release that need to control, you stop fighting the market and start flowing with it. You become calm. A good trade no longer excites you. A bad trade no longer crushes you. They are simply outcomes, data points. That is evolution. Most traders seek certainty in data. The wise find certainty in discipline, because no data can protect you from your own emotions. The market doesn't care how smart you are. It only rewards emotional consistency, the ability to do the right thing, especially when it feels wrong. That is the paradox of mastery. When everything screams to act, you stay still. When fear says run, you hold. When greed says push you, exit by rule. Every candle is a mirror. Every drawdown, a teacher. Every surge, a test of humility. Trading was never about money. It was about building a mind that can handle uncertainty with grace and composure. Most people quit because they came for profit and found themselves instead. If you keep facing fear, you find quiet confidence, the kind that no outcome can shake. Success in trading isn't controlling the market, it's controlling yourself while the market remains uncontrollable. That is the secret of letting winners run. It is not strategy, it is surrender. Surrendering the illusion of control, surrendering the need to be right, surrendering the urge to secure the temporary win instead of the meaningful one. Let your winners run, not because it guarantees more profit, but because it trains your mind to live inside uncertainty without panic. Each trade you hold, each fluctuation you endure, each fear you outlast, that is strength being built. At some point, you realize trading isn't about outsmarting the market. It's about outlasting your emotions. Patience beats precision. Acceptance beats prediction. Discipline beats everything. When you grasp that, you become untouchable. The market can take your profits, but not your peace. It can test your confidence, but not your clarity. It can stretch your patience, but not break your process. You truly win, not when your balance grows, but when your reactions don't. So next time you feel tempted to scale out too soon to protect what feels safe, remember this: winners don't die because the market turned. They die because you couldn't bear the feeling of maybe losing what you had. Let that truth sink in. Then breathe and let the trade run. Because trading isn't about what you make today, it's about who you become tomorrow. You don't need to kill your winners to feel secure. You need to grow strong enough to let them live. That is how you scale out without sabotage. That is how you evolve from emotional trader to master. That is how you embody mind over markets. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just about trading. It's about transformation. Every chart, every trade, every fluctuation is a reflection of the inner world you carry. You're not here to outsmart the market. You're here to master yourself. The goal isn't to never feel fear. The goal is to act with discipline while fear is present. Because that's where freedom lives, in the space between impulse and execution. Let your winners run. Let your process speak. Let your mind grow stronger than your emotions. This is how you build consistency. This is how you evolve as a trader. This is how you find peace in a game designed to test your chaos. You don't need to conquer the market. You need to conquer the need to control it. Thank you for watching Mind Over Markets. If this message resonated with you, share it with another trader who's fighting the same battle. And remember, master your mind, and the markets will follow.